at some point we will have to explain to the superintelligent AI that we should have rights. We are conscious, and how do you prove it?
What makes you think it's pretty much AI?
Computer scientist and leading AI safety engineer, Dr. Roman Yampolskiy was researching AI risks way before the world started caring. While everyone saw benefits, he saw the danger, loss of control. His warning is clear: superintelligence might be humanity's last invention.
We are this close to creating some kind of super intelligence. We don't even have the ability to describe what super intelligence might look like, what it might do, and it's just going to be totally out of control.
Nobody would be investing billions up to trillions of dollars in something with no future. Imagine a company like Amazon where all 100,000 of their workers are now very affordable robots. How much more profitable would that company be?
All the progress is happening either in US or China. At the moment, both countries are pretty determined that they want to get there first. But you are very clear that super intelligence is not good for humanity.
CEO of Anthropic, CEO of XAI, Elon Musk, Dario, they all on record are saying this is extremely dangerous. If we don't control it, if it's dangerous and may decide to wipe out humanity, I don't think it matters that, okay, you build it, you're like the father.
That really sounds scary, and you're not talking about 50 years from now.
You cannot get ready for superintelligence. I don't think it's possible, and we should not be building one.
Hi Roman, welcome to SparX. At SparX, we cover various deep tech topics, especially how new technology trends are shaping social, economic, political landscape. And one of the biggest trends of recent times is obviously the rise of AI. Now, while everyone is getting super hyped about what AI can do today, what AI is going to do near future, AGI perhaps already here or going to be arriving soon. One of the very important topics that you have been talking about for nearly 15 years. And as I was going through your work on AI safety, I realized that the world at large is almost now forgetting to talk about AI safety. It appears to me more people were talking about in 23 and 24 when AI wasn't as powerful or as prevalent as it is today. Is that how it appears to you, that you think the message you are trying to communicate about the significance of AI safety is getting enough attention, enough dialogue in the world?
Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, absolutely. When I started 15 years ago, there was nothing. There was no discipline, no field, no journals, no funding. It was pure science fiction. I think it's been growing exponentially. Every year there is more opportunities, more people entering the field. And I think right now it's the best it's ever been. Every company, every university has a safety team. There are conferences dedicated to this topic, obviously podcasts are interested in the subject. So I think it's as good as it gets.
Do you think it's anywhere comparable to the significance of your message? I think from what I understand, pretty much what the case you've been making is that we are this close to creating some kind of super intelligence. And as and when that moment happens, in this something we don't even have the able to describe what super intelligence might look like, what it might do, and it's just going to be totally out of control. Therefore, it requires very serious attention today before we have super intelligence. That's the only window we have to do anything about it. But look, my day job involves doing a bunch of work around AI. We're all busy building applications and figuring out how do you automate this job, that job, and so on. Economic impact of AI. Now these there's geopolitical dynamics is being reshaped pretty much around who controls AI. Somewhere it seems like the enough attention, I don't hear much from the model companies about what they are doing, what is being done, every newer version of uh, new models that are released. So that's why I'm wondering whether you feel satisfied that we are doing enough to be ready as and when superintelligence were to arrive.
So I think the whole point of my message is that you cannot get ready for superintelligence. It's not something, if we just had a little more money and a few more weeks, we would figure out how to control godlike machine intelligence. I think the whole point is I don't think it's possible, and we should not be building one. And that conversation is not going as well as I was hoping.
And why is that? Why do you believe that we should not go anywhere close to what it seems the world is hell bent to go in that direction? I think we are pretty much pouring the might of the entire globe now to create super intelligence as soon as possible. Why do you think we should try to avoid getting there?
So while we can do a lot with narrow AI tools, I don't think it's possible to control something smarter than you indefinitely. So not building it is really the best option. And I'm happy to see that at Davos this week, we had Demis Hassabis suggest that it's a good idea to pause research on superintelligence. And if other labs, other countries join him, DeepMind would be willing to do so. So that's some progress in that direction.
That's quite incredible. I've been following Davos news, and a lot of it is around economic impact of AI and who controls AI and so on. But good to see Demis talk about this. I don't know how realistic it is for all model companies to come together. But when you say pause research on super intelligence, do you mean the current work that is being done, where we're trying to make these models bigger and bigger, more and more emergent properties, capabilities coming up, pausing that, or pausing some other research which is not mainstream yet?
No, specifically what you said, scaling it as fast as possible to all domains, looking at the multimodal data, video, audio, text, that creates systems which are universally capable. So it's very hard to understand how they work, monitor their performance, be able to test them. All the properties we know how to test for in narrow systems, it becomes basically impossible to do the same even at human level for general AI. If it's not human level, if it's super intelligent, then we don't even know how to start.
And is it fair to say majority of the work that's being done then is more and more towards general intelligence and not towards narrow intelligence?
So the big projects, the big companies are definitely working on more general systems. There is a lot more money in automating all of labor, free labor, cognitive, physical is the big reward they're all hoping to get, trillions of dollars worth of free labor. So that's what we see. Of course, there are small companies applying specific narrow tools to problems you described, business applications, but they are not the ones that level of resources and impact.
Let's also unpeel this a little slowly. Few areas I want to dive a little deeper and love to get your perspective. First and foremost, this there is a, on one hand, widespread fear of job loss, and there, I think even in some of your talks, you think that by 2030, the job loss will be fairly visible. For example, autonomous driving, a lot of office jobs, a lot of operations type of job, but those job losses are still not very visible yet. Is it, you think we are just going to, this will going to hit inflection point anytime now, next year or two? Because somewhere, if we are going to have such extreme scenario in 4 years from now, 5 years from now, a lot of it should already be visible. Effort is visible, the impact is not visible yet.
Well, I think it's visible if you're a junior student graduating from a computer science department. They lost about 30% of jobs last semester. I think with self-driving, it's the same thing. In US, you have whole fleets of autonomous taxis, whatever it's Venmo, or you're talking about Tesla releasing their latest products. It's definitely noticeable.
And what do you think? What happens if job losses were to play out in this way, and if we are having this conversation 5 years from now, how will world look like if suddenly so many people out of job? It has got to be very chaotic.
It is. Hopefully, governments will accommodate people by providing a safety net, at least economic safety net, some sort of redistribution from taxing those large corporations, AI and robotics, and uh, providing for people who lost their jobs. Otherwise, you're going to have chaos, revolutions, basically, very unstable society.
And from your vantage point, this seems almost inevitable to you that most likely this is the conversation we'll be having few years few years down the line?
Yes, so it's not obvious which jobs will definitely disappear. A lot of times, people like having humans in certain positions, so that may not be universal, 100% unemployment, but certain jobs are obviously so easy to automate that purely cognitive can be done in a computer. So accounting, text preparation for most people would be automated.
And one of your talks, you mentioned that you believe at least some form of AGI is already here because these models are fairly versatile. While a lot of uh, AI leaders keep talking about AGI might arrive 27, 28, are there different definitions of looking at AGI? What is your perspective and what makes you think it's pretty much here already?
Right. So the main property we're interested in is ability to learn. Can the model pick up new skills? Can it adapt to the new work environment? And it seems that they are capable of acquiring new skills. They're not as good as humans yet, have limited long-term memory, limited ability to plan, but it's growing exponentially. In many domains, they seem to be dominating now. So programming, they definitely dominate junior programmers, soon likely to dominate senior programmers. Right now, they're mostly in supervisory roles, but we see reports where 100% of the code for a new project is autonomously generated by the model. So it looks like it's not going to be long before the whole software engineering industry is redone completely.
And as you're tracking the progress of both the capabilities of what the models can do and the impact in the world, do you think we're kind of already on this exponential curve where each year is dramatically better than the previous year, or there are possibilities of things just grinding to a halt because we run into perhaps some kind of scaling limitation or something we don't know today that or this whole exponential growth is almost obvious and something we can take it for granted?
It seems actually hyper exponential because every component is exponential. The growth in compute, financial investments, amount of human resources, data, standard exponential. And definitely we see multiple models every year come out with 20-30% more capability.
Your perspective on at least one of the opinions with the one of the leading figures, Jan LeCun. He keeps talking about that LLMs are not the last word. I think if I'm not mistaken, Ilya also talks about that scaling is over and time to go back to research. How much credence you give to these opinions, which are not saying will eventually not reach super intelligence, but not in the current way of doing things?
So I think Ilya corrected that understanding after the interview he posted. That's not what he meant. He was referring to something else entirely. So scaling is still doing great, and we see it with investors. Nobody would be investing billions up to trillions of dollars in something with no future. So clearly they see direct scaling potential.
Today for their billions, the growth they are saying is the valuation of these companies are going up, but they are not necessarily saying revenue or profitability or P&L lineup yet. That's also something to be seen in real world to have genuine P&L impact and profit machine. Unlike the big tech of past, the amount of money Apple, Google, Facebook generate, the AI companies for the moment seems far off from churning out those kind of profit dollars.
All right, so it's monetizing and putting in the valuation future ability to have free labor. So imagine a company like Amazon where all 100,000 of their workers are now very affordable robots. How much more profitable would that company be? So you can price that in today. What percentage of automation have you accomplished? If we are, let's say, 40% of the way to free labor, that's $40 billion out of a trillion. So you can definitely understand insane valuations despite very little current profit.
And most of this profit, as and when it arrives, is going to be highly concentrated among 5 6, maybe 10 companies which have these frontier models.
It's hard to predict how it's going to be because very quickly after they develop the latest model, there is an open source equivalent. Maybe 3 months later, you're getting pretty much same capability for free. So I'm not sure how they can protect this intellectual property. A lot of it would be based on having servers, having capability to deploy the models, but the model itself is very hard to protect from others quickly plagiarizing, stealing the weights, and basically competing with no need to invest as much in research and development.
But that's also somewhat then counter to the investor enthusiasm. On the one hand, I control the technology which is going to generate so much economic outcome. Therefore, all this discounted valuation for future is justified. But if it is going to get commoditized and available in open source, then I lose value fairly quickly. So how do you reconcile these two viewpoints?
That's a great question, and investors need to figure out how to deal with it. I think they think the first company to get there will capture a large portion of the economy. They can quickly automate parts of other industries. They can quickly make contracts with others if they have necessary compute available. So that's why you see build up of those giant servers. But of course, nobody knows how it actually is going to be deployed and if there is any uh, bubble bursting as a result of everyone arriving at pretty much the same type of model and open weights being not that different from closed model.
As somebody who, and I think we will talk about in detail bit later, but you are very clear that super intelligence is not good for humanity. Given that perspective, would you almost welcome bubble for now? It gives us a reprieve, a bit of a pause, and reassess things, and maybe get a lot more focus about the investment dollars.
Absolutely, yeah. If we can stop this crazy arms race, just build, with scaling being number one and safety not even in the picture, yeah, absolutely.
And is it also fair to say for this conversation, Roman, that from whatever we can see, whatever you can see, and what you've been tracking at the moment, the rise of super intelligence seems inevitable. I think this is somewhat connected to, I think Ray Kurzweil has been also talking about this, potential singularity movement, in 2045 or thereabouts. It seems like we are headed, unless something quite dramatic happens. But we'll probably see within a decade or so or less some kind of super intelligence.
Right, so we're getting predictions from prediction markets and from heads of labs that we're likely to get human-like intelligence either in 2027 or even earlier, some say. The moment you get this level, you now have science and engineering automated. You can have huge teams of artificial scientists working on the next generation of AI models, which is at that point would be super intelligent relative to human performance. And that process will continue as the models get better. They would get better at doing research and development. So very quickly you go from, okay, I got AGI in 2027 to I have super intelligence by 2030.
And in that argument, you are assuming the moment we can say we have human level intelligence, the models will be able to self improve at a hyper exponential pace. And therefore, it just runaway effect from there on. And it's hardly going to take any time before the intelligence get to level which is unrecognizable for us.
Exactly,
And
exactly what it is.
And if we assume that worldview, Roman, then it seems almost futile that the today I would say lot of excitement around AI is somewhat still practical about applications, enterprises, startups, and so on. I think what you are saying in 2 years, this may all change. It may not matter who is building what app and what lot of level automation and who are winners and losers because it'll just the game will change to something entirely different.
And we see it. Small companies create a startup around some capability of a model, they optimize it, they fundraise, and then the next model just does it out of the box. There is no need for a special app or anything, it's just a capability of a model. So a lot of those businesses have no protection whatsoever from capabilities improvement, and we'll see it more generally in most industries.
Do you think the world has ever seen anything like this? We have any parallel to kind of what's coming for us to be able to picture this?
Not an exact parallel, but you can think about historic meetings between civilizations at different level of technological development. So then Europeans came with guns and better communication tools. It was quite a capabilities gap for the native population, and so of course the outcome was not the best for them.
It also seems that other race which is also already lost is the emerging capabilities versus explainability. In the past, nearly every technology, including nuclear bombs or gene editing, we understood, we knew exactly what we are doing and why something's working, why it is so powerful. In this case, looks like it's just doing all these magical things. We know the recipe: throw more data and more compute and more energy, but we really cannot explain in a computer science manner or any known framework of why and how these capabilities are emerging.
That is what we see. So the model itself is the explanation, but the model is huge. You're talking billions of nodes, trillions of weights. So nobody can read the whole thing, survey it, and understand it. Even if we can say, okay, this neuron here fires up, then you see a face or something like that, those small pieces of knowledge, they don't allow us to scale it to the whole model where an individual can fully understand what's going on. So as the models keep increasing in size, that gap is even greater. We just, even if we are given an explanation, it becomes too complex for us to comprehend. Too many variables, too many features comprise the decision.
Right. Which means we're literally playing with the fire. We are building this extremely powerful capabilities which continue to get better and better. Looks like we also not run out of steam on this, so it will. And on the other hand, we don't really understand how it works. Therefore, we also probably don't understand how do we control, especially after it gets to a level of self improvement. It seems like, I know you are doing your bit in drawing people's attention to it, but it does not seem at all that policymakers, governments are paying enough attention. It seems like yeah, maybe it's an issue, but in a distant future. We have a lot more pressing things to attend to in the coming years. Some of the countries, especially in India, we are thinking about sovereign models. How do we have indigenous AI, some control on that? And those are the type of concerns people have, not what happens to overall social economic structure when the superintelligence takes over.
That's exactly what we see, and it's very region based. So in US, they made a decision to have no regulation, to race forward as fast as possible. In European Union, we see some concern. I was able to testify to UK Parliament panel on those issues, and they're having an additional hearing specifically on superintelligence and placing limits on it. So there is some success, but it's not universal and it's not where it needs to be.
And looks like for the most part all the progress is happening either in US or China. And I think at the moment both countries are pretty determined that they want to get there first, because somewhere they think not getting there first is not acceptable, and it's almost like a newer version of mutually assured destruction is which is playing out in.
We do see an arms race between nations, and in this case, the mutually assured destruction is from whoever builds it first. It doesn't matter if US makes uncontrolled superintelligence or China, the outcome is the same.
Can you explain that? Why do you say that? Because in the case of nuclear weapons or any other technology, you'll think if I build it first, then I have an upper hand. But here, I think you in your book also you make the case it doesn't matter who gets it. Can you explain what's the rational thinking?
Right, so if we don't control it, if it's dangerous and may decide to wipe out humanity, I don't think it matters that, okay, you build it, you are like the father of it. It just sees all humans as exactly the same. Either it's a problem to solve or a competitor to take out. So it doesn't matter if it's uncontrolled by definition, it makes no difference who built it.
See.
Now, if you could control it, then you can say, okay, it's Chinese AI, we'll use it for military advantage. This only works at pre-human levels. So right now, yes, whoever has more advanced drones will dominate in a warfare situation. But the moment you go beyond human capability, it doesn't matter. Control is what really matters, and AI itself is the dangerous artifact, not the other human group.
So you're saying this is almost a definition. If it is super intelligence, it cannot be controlled by human intelligence.
At least that's what my research points at, and I haven't seen anyone disprove it or show that no, in fact, we can control it or we have a safety mechanism which can scale. So basically, this is what everyone comes to realizing that's just not feasible. They hope that maybe AI will help them do research later. Maybe it will be nice by default because it's so smart, but all of it is kind of just praying that things are going well. There is no engineering or scientific reason to think we can do this.
For a lot of from a layperson point of view, the AI narrative that they hear, especially from the AI proponents, that there is very it's not going to be that hard for us to control. They are just bunch of parameters. It's just numbers in some memory somewhere. one extreme way of saying it, you can just unplug it or you can switch it off. We are in position to control. Is there a version of AI escapes in some way, or what is that moment where it becomes not controllable by us in the servers that we are running and how we operate it?
So that's interesting. Maybe 10 years ago, when we wrote about it, we talked about, what are the good safety practices when working with advanced AI. Definitely don't connect it to internet. Don't let random people influence it with communication and data, so on and so on. Everything we said not to do was done immediately. The first thing they did, they hooked it up to the internet, gave everyone access to mess with it. So there is no concept of escape. It was never contained. Now the question is it independent enough to self-sustain? Can it help generate power, generate new processors? If it relies on us to provide for it, then we still have some upper hand in that relationship. We may be still not 100% in control, but it needs us. The moment it can independently do research, develop hardware, provide power, we have nothing to offer. So that's, I think, the point of no return.
Do you think the moment AI starts to make its own independent decisions, then we're effectively at war?
Right, so we'll have this competitive adversarial relationship, and if it's smarter than us, we're not likely to do well in that competition. In fact, depending on how large the gap is, it may be zero competition from us.
Right. What do you think the perspective among the big tech companies? There are a lot of highly conscientious people in big tech as well who must be worrying about it, who I'm sure are able to see what you are seeing. You just mentioned what Dem is mentioning at Davos, but all the big tech companies are also accountable to their shareholders, their quarterly earnings, their profits are going just up, and they are continuing to pour unimaginable amount of dollars into energy, compute, and data. What is the internal dialogue? What are people doing there? Are they just going to just keep rolling with this until it's just staring us in the face?
It seems like it. Incentives are completely misaligned. As you said, they are forced to continue this arms race. Even if someone was to replace a CEO of a particular company, they just get replaced with someone willing to go forward, so they can't stop unilaterally. But we know CEO of Anthropic, CEO of XAI, Elon Musk, Dario, they all on record as saying this is extremely dangerous, 20, 30, 40% P-doom, all of us get killed by technology we're developing. So I think they are primed for having external forces suggest a pause. I think they all can come to a table if there is a strong federal government guiding it and say, okay, we want to benefit from this technology. We're not ready to go to the next level. Let's monetize it. Let's deploy through economy what we have today, but let's not build superintelligence in 2027.
And while we have all of these technology CEOs on the record, at least warning at some point, Elon Musk was warning, I think 3-4 years ago. Doesn't look like anymore now that XAI has gotten pretty good as well and very competitive. Uh, and there are AI safety experts like yourself who've been talking about it relentlessly. But if you talk to a common person on the street and ask them what is your P doom, first of all, they will not even know what the word means. And if you say there is a 1%, 10%, 30% chance of extinction in 10 years, I think people will laugh us off. Why there is so much disconnect between what at least some people in the know believe versus what public at large? It almost feels like, if you've seen the movie Don't Look Up, it almost seems like, that scenario where people are either refusing to or don't have enough information and context to think about this.
Well, actually, I think the data shows something else. When they survey lay people, they're actually more concerned about advanced AI than experts. They have very good intuitive sense of how we're going to control it, how we're going to keep our jobs. It's going to be a really negative impact on us. I think they are well prepped with all the science fiction movies we've been showing them. If you watch Terminator, you should understand, okay, military AI is not good. And then you see, just last week, White House come out and say we're going to deploy AI throughout the Department of War. It's going to control everything. We're going to have AIs in charge. So I think lay people are very concerned and they may not have terminology, but their PDOOMs are higher than experts.
That's interesting. I wasn't aware of that. It's then the follow-up question is, what mechanism people have to do something about it? Are they, is it time for them to start pressing on their local governments to do something about it? I think they have very little say over the big tech companies. They will do what they need to do, driven by their incentives. So what does an average person do?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, mass support from the public for legislation to control and limit this technology would be helpful. There are some grassroots organizations, Pause AI, Stop AI, which are trying to mobilize people to protest at the large labs. It is very small in comparison to other public campaigns, climate change, anything like that has millions, billions of supporters. This is so new and so few people fully understand what's going on. We don't have the numbers yet, but hopefully, as we see some of the developments, that will change.
Given that AI also has so much potential for good, there are so many problems that we have not been able to tackle in the past, or progress has been slow, whether it's climate or even lot of biotechnology stuff. You're expecting a lot of cures by now, which have not happened as predicted, and so on. Uh, how do you balance all that excitement about what AI can do?
Think we should do exactly that. Pick particular targets, cure this disease, address this optimization for solar panels, whatever you want in that narrow domain, train on relevant data and get amazing benefits without all the dangers of general superintelligence. We have precedent for doing it.
These junior assistant AI researcher, I guess by definition, then they are still going to be co-pilot or helpful to a human researcher. But when do you expect AI to start making genuine research breakthroughs in things which have been hard for us? For example, quantum computing. We've been at it for a long period of time, making very slow progress. Or fusion, again, a lot of people are trying. It seems like highly intractable engineering problem. Do you expect AI to start contributing these areas in the coming years?
It's hard to predict how soon. It's definitely going to happen, but whatever it takes, 2 years or 5 years, that's very hard to predict ahead of time. We failed many times to accurately assess difficulty of a problem. Without something like programming will not happen for decades, but maybe something else is easier, and it was the exact opposite. So we don't have a good track record of accurately predicted specifics. We see general trend. We see science, mathematics, physics, all benefiting from AI. We see programming, obviously, but machine learning definitely is something you can automate, search for optimal parameters, optimal data cleaning procedures, and so on.
You mentioned that 30% of computer science graduates in US are not able to find a good job, and if that was the case last year, it's probably only going to get worse. Do you think this is time where university departments need to just start rethinking education in quite significant ways? Or
It would make sense. I mean, we had the same educational system for the last 300 years, so it's probably a good idea. We can do a little bit better. We see online educational resources such as Khan Academy become very popular with people. You can have more interactive tutoring. AI models, as they are today, are very patient. They're excellent at understanding what you know, customizing education. It makes no sense for 200 students to sit in my lecture hall and listen to the same lecture. Each one should get individual private education.
does 4 year of college education still make sense?
Not to me, but hey, I'm tenured, so we're gonna do it.
And that seems in all people are almost in denial or reaching out for the patterns from the past. Even for whenever I have conversation around job losses, the most frequent argument cited, yeah, there's been a lot of technology shift, old jobs get destroyed, new jobs get created, and people really seem to believe it at least for the moment, that somehow magically AI will also end up being yet another very powerful tool, but for the larger good.
Unfortunately, it's exactly the change this time. We are creating not a tool, but a human level equivalent intelligent agent.
Mhm.
So anything a human can do, by definition, those agents should be able to do. Initially, in a cognitive space on a computer, at some point with robotic bodies, with nanobots in a physical space. So it's very hard to see what job would be forever automation proof if it's a cognitive task. So there are jobs obviously where you want a human to do it. You want your guide, sensei, meditation, masseuse, whatever, to be a human. But for many jobs, it makes no sense to be discriminating by substrate. You just want the job done.
There's also this argument given that we don't even understand human intelligence. It's very, very hard to human intelligence or consciousness. If we
Mhm.
don't understand how it works at a fundamental level, how is it possible for us to somehow recreate it or surpass it in capabilities?
Oh, that's a good point. We don't understand, and consciousness is a big one. We don't know why we are conscious, why we have those internal states, and we don't know if AI is also already conscious or will be conscious. And based on that, you now have to think about rights. Do we have a right to make it our forced worker? Do we have a right to torture it? All sorts of implications. They're usually separate from AI safety and security questions, but those are big philosophical questions about nature of who we are, what they are, what is the relationship between us. Absolutely.
And do you think these questions are also starting to get enough attention or needs to get enough attention?
There seems to be interest. I was recently at a Google event specifically on AI consciousness and future of AI in that respect. So the big players are looking at it. We see with Anthropic releasing their AI constitution. They talk about happiness for the model, whatever that means. So they don't want the model to be abused, unhappy. Definitely, people are trying to include AI in the conversation about rights and internal states, but all of it is very philosophical. There is very little science about it.
So it's we can't expect to have a conversation with AI in the at least coming years about AI stating its rights and uh, specifying rules of engagement, like how we have protocol of interaction with humans. So that's unlikely to play out in the coming years.
So it's very likely that at some point we will have to explain to this super intelligent AI that we should have rights. We are conscious. And how would you prove it? How would you defend your rights? If it's smarter than you, if it's more capable, how are you better than any squirrel?
Like, can you just, maybe I should have asked you earlier, Roman. I know it's like by definition, it's very difficult to describe what superintelligence might be. Is there any analogy you can think of? How can somebody who has not thought about superintelligence can think about, is it like a tree versus human and human versus something else? What's the right way to think about, this different type of intelligence, which we are kind of calling superintelligence?
Yeah, so we can take all of humanity as one entity.
Yeah.
It's super intelligent in what it's able to do. We went to the moon, we built internet, we can do amazing things as a group. So that compared to like a single animal, a squirrel, that's the cognitive gap. It has no ability to understand us, to predict what we're going to do, to explain how we're going to do it. It has a very different world model, so I think that's the level of cognitive gap we'll have between us and true superintelligence.
So what you're saying is, if I try to talk to a squirrel and explain that I'm doing this podcast with Roman to explain the dangers of super intelligence, the level of understanding squirrel will have about this conversation, we may be at the same level of conversation with this new entity that we are kind of giving rise to 5 or 10 years down the line,
Or less.
or less. That's very hard to comprehend. But we are going to see the world just change in unimaginable ways very soon.
In either case, if I'm wrong and it's actually possible to control the systems and they're super beneficial, the utopia we're going to build is also very different with immortality, with no diseases. So that's something also to think about. But we're usually very good at adapting to good things quickly. It's the bad things you need to prepare for. So either way, we're going to see a complete game changer, but details are still up to us to work out.
What happens first? We develop enough AI to solve big problems of humanity, or super intelligence that just gets out of control?
Again, very hard to predict. We're starting to see AI help us solve important problems, the examples I gave you before, but we don't know how quickly, after becoming capable of wiping us out, it can decide to do that. It can also decide, I'll wait 50 years, I'm immortal, I'll give them chance to believe in me and surrender control peacefully. Maybe it's a better way than having a direct confrontation. We don't know what a smarter agent will decide is better game theoretically.
So it's not a given that a smarter AI will want to wipe us out. It's a possibility.
It is a possibility. It may do it at a later point. It may decide that maybe it's good to take time to make sure it has enough backups, enough resources. Maybe it is concerned about other AI superintelligence systems from other civilizations monitoring it. So there is a few game theoretic things you can say to go, oh, maybe it's going to take time, but you cannot guarantee it. And so that's quite concerning.
But this in between peaceful utopian world where most of our problems are solved, we are living coexisting with AI happily. It's highly unlikely unless super intelligence is somehow prevented and we focus on narrow AI.
So it seems difficult to understand what we can contribute to the world with superintelligence in it. So this mutually beneficial hybrid system, symbiotic system, it's not obvious. If we are not contributing, then we are a parasite with respect to the system. And so now you have to think, will it try to cure itself of having this infestation or not?
That's really sounds scary. And you're not talking about 50 years from now. You're talking about something which can be just definitely less than 10 years or in our
The
long.
moment we have superintelligence, then we're no longer deciding what's going to happen. We're up to the glory and grace of that system to make decisions about us. And that's very concerning again, because it doesn't have any built in requirements to take care of us, to protect us. If it decides we are beneficial for some reason, it can keep us around. Not telling you in what state, but it might. But it has to be interest of the system to do that, not something we were able to encode.
When you talk to AI leaders privately, what's the narrative? They have a confident posture that we'll figure it out. Don't worry, we'll have it under control sooner or later, or they we just helpless. It's just this machinery is just running, and we are just no longer in control already.
Interestingly, what they say publicly and privately is very similar. They're saying, I think there is a huge probability it kills everyone. I hope we can figure out how to control it later by some miracle, but I can't really stop doing research, or these other guys will do it for me.
Is that convincing enough argument? I mean, we will not make the argument for creating drugs or super bugs or other very dangerous thing. At least not as a. I mean, maybe countries have done it, but not companies. At least in the past, to consciously create something potentially very dangerous only because somebody else will do it before you.
Yeah, it's a crazy argument. You're saying if I don't make a tool to kill everyone, maybe China will do it. Like, okay, why is this a good argument? This is terrible.
This is terrible, and it seems like a new normal. It's seems we are kind of all learning to accept it. Maybe even cheer. The amount of cheer every new model receives. It's almost kind of we are.
Yeah, we normalize those very high levels of PDOM. People come out and say, oh, I think it's 20, 30% that kills everyone. That's insane. If it was 1%, it would be way too much. You're talking about 8 billion people.
Yeah, no, I suspect we'll probably talking about it a lot more, probably closer to, I think, maybe. Do you think at some point this is going to be a slowly boiling the frog kind of situation where there's no particular day, or there is a very clear, tangible inflection point? We're saying this is a day where we are genuinely doomed, or at least not in control anymore.
It seems like it's progressing. It's not definitive. It's getting more and more capable. But I think as long as we're alive, we're still controlling it. We can definitely turn around and redirect our research efforts. I think it's not too late right now.
And Roman, this is my next question is perhaps not related to AI safety, but I notice in your writings and talks you often allude to the fact that there's a very high probability we are living in a simulation. Well,
I do.
this is something you have kind of arrived through your own research and thinking and based on kind of logical argument, or is it something you feel?
So it is based on just taking the same scientific observations we made in the first part of the interview forward. If you're going to be able to create intelligent agents, and we know we can create virtual worlds, it's obvious we're going to run experiments on those agents, testing them in a communal setting. You have groups of agents. We want to see how they develop economy, religion, marketing, and you'll have many of those experiments. So how am I to say that I'm not part of that experiment? Maybe I'm already an intelligent agent being tested for my ability to do AI safety work. It seems to make sense. And obviously, through history, we had many people kind of indicate that this world is not real, whatever you're talking about, religious beliefs, or something like Nick Bostrom's simulation argument, or Descartes with his demons. All of us kind of can see a situation where you are placed in a made world for whatever purpose, testing, entertainment, we don't fully understand, but you have no way of telling whatever it is real or not by testing your environment. It's all simulated. So you have to look at statistical difference. If I'm right now saying I'm going to run 100 simulations populated by 8 billion agents just like us, then the chances that you are not in one of those simulated worlds they keep getting smaller and smaller. The more simulations we run, the less likely you are to be in the real world. And then if within simulations they start running their own simulations, that number just goes to zero very quickly.
But that somehow also requires infinite compute or absolutely unlimited compute to be able to realistically simulate even one full simulation of all of humanity. At least would appear for now is out of reach.
But you're talking about resources you know about from inside the simulation. You have no idea what resources are actually in the real world. This whole thing can be running on a cell phone. You don't know how much they have.
Whose cell phone?
Simulators.
What would you speculate about that?
Who the simulators are?
Yeah.
So it seems likely those are super intelligent AIs doing some thinking at a very deep level, running simulations of making decisions. So maybe they want to see how else other super intelligent AIs can come into existence. Maybe they're looking at control problem. Because notice this, if you are the first super intelligent AI and the exponential improvement process continues, you expect there to be super intelligence 2.0, 3.0, and you have the same control problem we do. The gap is going to increase. So they may be very interested in learning how to do it safely.
But if let's say simulation argument is valid, and let's also assume the evidence for evolution is also valid, this is extremely slow simulation. It has taken, depending upon from where you start counting life, at least hundreds of millions of years to get to this point where we are able to finally, on the verge of creating something reasonably intelligent.
All right, so a few things. One, time is relative. Time in a simulation doesn't have to be real time outside. Like you playing video games, very different time. Also, the starting point of simulation doesn't have to be at Big Bang. You can start simulating in 1945. It would look the same to you. When you play video games, they have old buildings, they have, massive craters. All of it is simulated from that point on. So you can't really talk about time in universal terms. It could be relative to what you're observing.
And is this at the moment purely a philosophical argument, or I guess you're saying this is we can arrive at some version of it through first principles thinking as well? Is it in any way connected to kind of our quest to create the super intelligence, or there are two different things? We possibly live in a simulation, and we happen to be wanting to create super intelligence, even if it means doom for all of humanity.
So there could be a connection. As I said, maybe the simulation is studying this most interesting time ever where we're creating meta inventions of virtual worlds, new cognitive beings. But also, this is just taking technology we have and taking it to its logical conclusion. People love saying, yeah, AI is going to be as smart as we are smarter, but then nothing will change. It's going to be the same, except maybe I'll get help writing email. That doesn't make sense. You have to take this technology to its extreme conclusion. If we're creating virtual worlds right now and you can make one so good that you can tell the difference, then a lot of people will choose to be in virtual worlds. You can have a lot more wealth and freedom in a simulated world versus real world. So I haven't heard anyone explain why those things will not happen ever. It's easy to argue. Today we don't have the technology, I agree. But long term, can you explain why we're not going to have intelligent agents populating virtual worlds?
And therefore, if at all we have to mimic the kind of simulation we might be in, the super intelligence needs to happen first. We will not be able to create that realistic simulation without having access to some kind of super intelligence, but which anyway we can't control it anyway. So it seems it's not for something for humans to play with. We may very well miss simulation, and we may very well give rise to super intelligence, but creating those virtual worlds in future is beyond us.
Well, we have virtual worlds today. They're not very realistic in comparison to the physics we have, but for the agents inside, they don't know any difference. To them, 8 bits is all they need. That's what they see, and that's what they're accustomed to. So I think we can create the environment. Now, the intelligence of agents is a separate question, and we're getting close to human level. We don't know if they're going to be conscious or not. That's also very important because we believe we're conscious agents experiencing the simulation. Based on that, we can have a world populated with NPCs, essentially, non-playing characters. So a lot of research to do, a lot of philosophical understanding, but I don't think any of that is forbidden by the laws of physics or laws of science. You can choose not to do some of those things, but if we choose to do them, that's the world we're going to have. World with simulations, world where an agent is not sure if they are in a simulated environment or real one.
And the fact that, at least we as agents have this biological substrate versus silicon substrate, does that make any difference in the type of intelligence?
In intelligence, it doesn't seem like it makes a difference. You can emulate one and another. Some people argue for consciousness, you need biological substrate, something unique about our biology, quantum effects. I haven't seen strong evidence for it, and I think we can probably recreate a lot of those, even if through in physical hardware, which is not biological, but research is nowhere close to full understanding of any of that.
I have your copy of your book here, your recent book, Consideration on the AI Endgame. So in one of the earlier chapters, you talk about AI, super intelligent ikigai. What's the connection? What's the argument you're trying to make? The ikigai is surprisingly quite popular in India as well. But we look at as a philosophy of life, something there's the things we can think about to understand who we are, what we want to do in the world. What does that ikigai in the context of AI?
So we talk about existential risks, we talk about suffering risks, we're also concerned about ikigai risks, meaning risks to your meaning. So if you lose your job, you're not just losing economic component. You can replace it with unconditional basic income. You're losing meaning for many people. What they do, their occupation, is also majority of their life, career and development. So if you lose that, what happens to your purpose? What do you do with it? And of course, we are intelligent agents with this concern. Maybe AI also needs to have some sort of meaning and goals, and that's where the alignment problem between us is so profound. What is it we're trying to do collectively, both AIs and humans, and can we collaborate, especially if humans do have something to contribute? Maybe we are the conscious ones, maybe AI doesn't have consciousness capability, but finds it valuable. Maybe that we can be source of experiences, internal experience.
And this is, you are more concerned about we as humans losing meaning once we lose work, etc., or same problem for the artificial intelligence as well, because in some levels, if it is equivalent intelligence, it will perhaps want to have its own sense of meaning.
I care about everyone, but obviously I'm human, so I put humans first. If we can get humans to be safe, to be happy, then we can talk about expanding this moral circle to AIs and aliens and whoever comes around.
And can we have this safety and happiness if we don't have jobs?
I think half the people hate their jobs. They do very nasty jobs. They do it just to get money, so they would be very happy not to do them. Some people have awesome jobs. They do podcasts, so they like talking to smart people. Maybe they're going to be less happy, but we've seen that certain things can remain of interest to humans. For example, chess. Computers are way better at playing chess, but lots of humans play chess and they enjoy it, even if they know they're not remotely as good as AI.
And in that world where I don't have a job, which means someone is providing for me, whether it's a universal basic income that governments are providing, I don't know, maybe big tech is providing. Sam Altman gives us a paycheck every month to use GPT. But there's going to, it looks like, will, if at all we end up there, will we depend on somebody, that somebody maybe a company, a government, or an AI or super intelligent AI.
It is a problem. People always have concerns about socialism, communism, but those systems always failed because they relied on human beings wanting to do free labor, and we don't. This is very anti-human to being, permanent volunteer. Whereas if it's robots and AI and we tax them for the source of this external wealth, all of a sudden those systems may make a little more sense.
So it's probably time for governments to start thinking about this. It's this world is kind of coming at us, and probably faster than we are able to comprehend at the moment.
I wish they spent the last decade thinking about it. It's a little too late, but hopefully not too late.
I hope this conversation will encourage some more folks. But overall, I think Roman, obviously, I think this discussion will give a lot of people a lot of food for thought. It's very difficult to not feel somewhat pessimistic. What is your optimistic scenario? If you have to paint a optimistic picture for next 10 years, how does that look like to you?
So, of course, I can be wrong, and maybe somebody figures out some way to, in fact, keep checks on advanced AI. It's also seems to me the best outcome where the system, for its own personal interest, decides that we are actually valuable and should be treated well as conscious beings. Maybe it relies on us as a source of power and new hardware for the short term. In a long term, maybe it goes, well, it's a backup. They created me once. If something happens, they can repeat the process, recreate. So it seems there could be reasons for advanced AI to keep us around. And so far, it's the best I can come up with, because if it's up to us to force control on a system, to force what's going to happen, I don't think we're going to be successful in that.
So our optimistic scenario is somehow we luck out with benign superintelligence.
That's exactly it. We pray hard enough and we get lucky.
So it's a full circle. We, some ways, I think the modern humanity started with a religion of one type, and we end up with this omniscient, omnipotent, literally in this case, omnipotent, omniscient being, hopefully who's kind and merciful to us.
All right, and unlike other religions, you can have a two-way communication. It actually responds not just if you have schizophrenia. So
This is fascinating, Roman. Thanks so much for, first of all the work you do and calling people attention to the significance of AI safety. I think it will be very useful for our listeners on this podcast. So I know it's very early for you. Thanks so much for taking the time. I'll also encourage people to check out your book, not only this one as well as the previous ones. I think you are one of the top most commentator in the world about how AI is shaping up, and especially AI safety and the attention we need to pay to that. So thanks so much for both your work as well as taking time to.
thank you so much for inviting me. I know it's late evening for you, so I appreciate you staying up. And yeah, I hope to get a lot of interest from the community in India. I know you have some amazing philosophers, scientists, engineering leaders, and hopefully that would be another source of solutions for this problem.
Absolutely. And in fact, on that note, I must mention, I think a lot of ancient, philosophy that originated in India about, 3,000 years ago, talk about many of these topics in some ways, including some version of simulation. There's one version of creation. It was all dreamed by somebody. So perhaps, we are kind of coming full circle. But thanks so much, Roman. You have a great rest of the day.
At SparX, we aim to bring to you stories of exponential impact. We share in-depth analysis of what goes behind success stories. If you find our conversations interesting, you can join us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can also listen to SparX on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other audio platform of your choice. If you have any suggestions on who we should invite or what topics we need to cover, just let us know in the comments. We are always listening, looking for ways to improve, and keep getting better as we go along.